What's up, YouTube? Grind and Shine Recovery here. Check out these interviews. We went back through the past 2.5 years of being on YouTube. We pulled out the best interviews we've done. We got me on 23-1 with Josh on here. We're going to throw that interview in first, and then we're going to go to Gunnar Lindblom, then to Jake.
We can make it out. We're not stuck. We're only stuck if we allow ourselves to be stuck, if we believe we're stuck. We can make it out of whatever type of situation we want to make it out of. We just have to be strong enough to do it. You know what I mean? And we got to, once again, we got to believe in us. I believe in you, but you got to believe in yourself, no matter who.
Penitentiary, Joyceville, was the first time I tried heroin. I never really got deep into it, but when I got out December 30th, 2008, and I had gotten into pills a little bit, and I'd steadily, progressively gotten worse. I was in a codependent relationship, and eventually it led to full-blown heroin addiction. So 17 years federal, 3 fed sentence. Well, 17 years total, 3 federal sentences, 10 years heroin addiction, 20 years addiction total. And I'm 2 weeks away from finishing my parole, successfully completed.
Awesome.
You know what I'm saying? Passed all your analysis, got through all of that crap. And I'm a free man in 2 weeks. Totally free, man. Totally free.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you said the first time you used heroin was on the inside.
Yeah.
Man, that's so I mean, of course it's pretty rampant, all prisons there's a way to get it in. I guess why don't we touch on what the prison system was like up there, your first bid, how was it like? Do you think it benefited you, your first bid, or do you think it just made you a worse criminal?
Like first bid federally or first bid like as a young offender, or I don't think there was any benefit until my last bid. And I think that was the first time I really got offered the chance to go to rehabilitation. I was able to earn parole, and they accepted it, so I could go to this rehabilitation, and I was able to successfully complete it before I came home. So that made the progress a lot better,
Yeah, that's the reason I asked is because a lot of times, we'll go in there. Eviction, is it positive change? Is that in the title also, or?
From prison to positive change.
Okay. So, I guess first off, man, I'm going to ask you, what got you into the life, that took you down the road to prison?
Pretty much, man, being broke. A lot of people ask me because of the amount of times that I've been to prison and everything that I've been through, man, what kind of drugs did you use and everything? And for me personally, it never was drugs. I've never done any of the hard drugs. It was growing up poor. My mom was a cocaine addict, the whole time I was growing up. And so whenever I became a teenager, whenever I thought I was a man, I wanted to get out in the streets and I wanted to start making easy money. I wanted what I had never had. I had been broke my whole entire life, and I just didn't want to be broke anymore. And so I started out as a young teenager, probably 12, 13 years old, doing things like breaking into cars, breaking into buildings, little businesses and things like that. And then it just escalated all the way up to whenever I went to federal prison for a multi-million-dollar check scam.
Well, okay, so I'm glad you went up to, going to prison for the check scam. I guess, what was some of the things that led up to you realizing something had to change? Because you got multiple numbers, correct?
Yes.
So, would you care to kind of go in? Was there any events that took place that you realized hey, this ain't gonna work? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Whenever I caught my federal charge, not when I caught it, but whenever I did what I did to get in trouble with the feds, my wife, we were separated at the time, but she was pregnant with my daughter, and we were separated by 2 states. She lived in South Carolina. I lived in Georgia. And so whenever she left me and I found out that she was pregnant, I kind of didn't believe it. I thought that there was a bunch of lies going on. I was really paranoid about the whole situation. But right before I went into federal custody, my daughter was born. And so basically I had already screwed up my life, gotten in trouble, got the feds chasing me. And then I actually found out that, yes, my daughter really is on the way. And so I went into federal prison knowing, now you have a kid, now you got to change your life, now you got to do something, and you got to get out and you got to cut the shit.
All right, man. No, that's definitely, you know.
And I was basically kicked out and getting arrested for little things here and there. And when I turned 17, I broke into a bunch of cars while I was high and blacked out on benzodiazepam. And I got arrested at 17 for burglary and went straight to prison.
So you got a prison number then from all that?
Yeah, I did 18 months for that, and all you needed was gear down there. But then I just got more time added on. You know what I mean? I kept doing stuff in jail. I was getting in fights. I was hanging out with gang members, trying to be cool, and learning how to use drugs even worse. I never got better in jail.
Yeah,
it didn't help.
Getting your PhD while you're in there, you know, in criminology, huh?
Exactly, man. I walked out way worse, and I used until I was about that close to death, and I was living in the woods, sleeping on the ground in Newfield, Maine. And
is that way? I heard you rap one point about flying a sign, and I related to it because I had been there at some point, you know. So you were homeless, you know, really living on the streets, you know.
Oh, it sucked, dude. It was probably the worst part of my addiction was once I had nowhere to go.
Yeah,
can't blame anybody. You know, I couldn't blame anybody.
Yeah, we burn all our bridges that we do have, you know. So what was the point that you were like, man, I got to do something different. I got to change. Because, I mean, you're doing pretty good for yourself now with your music and what you're doing.
Yeah, what happened was I went into rehab, in and out of my drugs, you know what I mean, and using. I had touched down in a rehab once, trying to hold on to whatever relationships with my family I had left. And I got kicked out quick. And the funny thing is I actually honestly didn't do anything wrong. They just couldn't tell if the medication in my system was still from detox or if I had used in rehab. So they were like, we got to let you go. So yeah. I don't blame. It was an accidental fluke in the system, but I took my hit and I got kicked out of rehab. But in those 30 days I was in rehab, I got a taste. I was like, this is cool. Like, I am sober. This is the best feeling in my life.
Yeah.
So then I went back out when I got kicked out and I started using drugs again, meth and dope. And I was back in the woods instantly. So I was like, weighing my options. And I was out in the woods in a tent. I was like, recovery is pretty good. They gave me a bed. They gave me food.
Yeah.
you know?
For sure. It definitely beats the woods, you know?
Yes, it does, man. So I just was like, what do I got to lose? I looked around at my tent one day with all the burn holes in my tent. Winter was coming. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to sleep somewhere warm. And if it works, it works.
The longer I stay sober, I've been sober, by the way, for almost 6 years now. I got sober January 11th of 2015, locked up. I was locked up. But anyways, I'll get into that later. But the longer I'm sober and what I realized that the drugs and alcohol is just a symptom of my underlying problem, which was me. I was always an outcast growing up. I got bullied. I was a social outcast, so a lot of it was my fault. I would start fights with 5 people that were older than me, and then get my ass kicked.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I never fit in anywhere, And the first time I drank was in the summer after 8th grade. I went with my sister. She was an AFS student, American Field Service student in Belgium, and she met this guy in Montreal, and we went and visited him for the week. And the first time I really got drunk was they had an arrival party for us, and they had they were French Canadians, and there was no limit on how much I could drink. It was the first time, I drank really, and they had wine, and I just kept drinking wine, and I felt like I fit in for the first time at that party. I could dance good, and I could talk. And on the flip side of that, I drank so much wine, they just remodeled their house.
Yeah, well, and it shows, I mean, it's a testimony to where you're at now. I mean, it's awesome. I relate to your music so much, man, on so many levels. So,
Thank you.
what was the big turning point for you? Like, what led up to where you were like, look, I gotta do something different?
I mean, I feel like there's been so many of them, over the last 15 years because, my first attempt at getting clean, like I said, I think I was 23. My sister got clean. She's been clean ever since, roughly 15, 16 years now. But
that's awesome.
So I followed her into the rooms, and I've had a year clean, 3.5 years clean, 2.5 years clean, a year clean, and now I have over 5 years clean. So I feel like there are many of them moments in my life where I felt like I had to change. Specifically this last time though, I just, could only do damage for so long. It's like I grew a conscience, while, being clean and, and trying this new way of life. But I mean, I talked to numerous, struggling addicts and alcoholics, on a daily basis. And, the only thing I can really, the shortest version is just, I was so tired of the pain. I was so tired of living the life that I was living. Like I seriously had no friends, no money. I burned every single bridge. Like I honestly was just a pathetic waste of space, a human being. And, I didn't want to live like that. And I mean, on top of waking up dope sick every single morning and throwing up bow into the toilet and never having a dollar to my name and just having to commit crimes every day just to feel normal, like literally just to feel normal, I had to go through all this work. And I'll tell you, like, once my sister got clean and stayed clean, I seen that, like, she let me know that it really was possible because she used with me every day for years, just as bad as me. And I knew she could do it, then I could too. And then once I actually started putting some days together, then I realized how much more beautiful this life is than opposed to using.
Yeah. Well, it's a daily grind of, like you said, just hustling to get high, and then you wake up and it's a repeat cycle. So, I guess, what you work in? How did you get working? Do you work in treatment now?
I do. So I do outreach for a treatment center. So I'm constantly talking and messaging with people all day, every day. I get a lot of messages, obviously, on my Kalichi Facebook. So I really just try to find them resources, whatever that may be. Depending on
other stuff. I mean, this kind of thing happens in many different ways all the time. The abuse of children.
Yeah,
and
it's a shame, man.
Because of all the things that came later with this whole experience, I wasn't really able to seek out counseling all these years because, I mean, law enforcement really didn't do nothing to investigate the situation when it was brought to their attention. They didn't really believe me or didn't want to have nothing to do with me because I was a rebellious kid that was in a lot of trouble all the time. So my father and grandfather actually exacted family justice and dealt with this situation. But because they had done that, I wasn't able to seek out counseling, and I just went into a downward spiral into destruction and chaos and resentment towards the world, drugs, crime, anything. My main drug of choice was crime, was the criminal lifestyle. I felt that I was, in a sense, kind of like getting even with the world for being so indifferent and intolerant and being so closed-minded in a lot of ways. I felt that being on the fringe of society as an outlaw was the best way of venting all the frustration and all the pain and disappointment and emotional turmoil that was going on inside of me.
Yeah.
So I chose the streets, I chose gangs, I chose drugs, I chose all that, and it finally led me into the prison system of California, starting in the early 90s, and it just continued to spiral out of control for many years. I mean, well over 2 decades I was in and out of prison in California, and finally in the feds, where I was caught up in a bank robbery out here in the state of Oklahoma, and that was just a turning point for me. Like, my grandfather was long dead, my father was long dead, and I felt that, you know, it was time for me to finally just break the silence of everything that happened to me and just start talking about it and learn how to deal with it, because it was at that moment that I learned that all my problems stemmed from this experience. You know, yes, I was a rebellious kid. Yes, I, you know, did horrible in school all the way up to when I was 14. You know, yes, I ran away from home and got into a lot of trouble, a lot of fights and stuff like that. But there's a lot of kids that went through a lot of that same stuff. And you know, who's to say that I wouldn't have grown out of it by the time I became a man? Or let's just say, for example, that I would have, you know, become a father, you know, got some girl pregnant and started a family, and that would have, like, got me out of it. Because my dad was, you know, he was kind of a bad kid himself, in a lot of trouble and stuff like that. And, you know, the minute he became a family man, he changed his life. So who's to say what would have happened with me? A lot of people that were bad kids that turned out they became cops, or they went in the military, or, you know, whatnot. I mean, who's to say what would have happened? But this experience, I believe, was kind of like the defining moment for my criminal activity and my criminal mindset, and the corrupt feeling that I was having inside of me, being that, you know, I had a lot of issues with identity and everything like that. It's going through an experience like that, it causes a lot of confusion in a boy that's 14 years old. I mean, this is the time when you're really getting into the growth, when you're starting to develop into a man. Yeah. By the time you're 14. So, you know, it's a lot of things were going on, a lot of issues inside of me where I had trouble maintaining, you know, healthy relationships, and basically was kind of closed off from the world and everything. And, you know, I just downward spiraled into drugs and destruction and gangs and crime and everything until I was in my late 30s. You know what I mean? 38 years old, and finally got caught up in this bank robbery. So it was just like, you know, 24 years pretty much of basically being all caught up in this stuff to where I finally was able to talk about it. So it was almost 25 years I was living with this thing, almost 25 years. Man. And I finally, I mean, I was still dealing with it, even though I talked about it for the first time, but it wasn't until like 2 years, you know, 2 years after that, and about 2013, 2014 is when I really started to address it and seek out like counseling and reentry programs inside the federal system to kind of like learn how to deal with this, so that I could actually finally get out and become successful. So I did all the programs that you can think of inside the feds, and I started getting really into like a spiritual component. I started to incorporate that into my life, because I've always studied like the occult and studied, you know, like esoteric teachings and the origins of religions and spirituality and stuff. But I always studied it from like a historical standpoint. I've never really believed in any kind of a higher power before. Yeah. So I knew that I needed some kind of something inside of me, something spiritual was growing. I didn't really know like what it was at the time, but I finally like developed this whole spiritual foundation within myself, and I didn't tie it to any religion. I mean, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Muslim or anything like what most people in prison follow. I have my own like spiritual path that I'm on, and I got to tell you that incorporating that into changing my mindset has completely set me on a whole different path. So I went through all these programs. I took all these programs, and I've just been on that path ever since, man. It's just like I went into a very, very aggressive cognitive behavioral therapy program in there. I ended up staying in the program up to a year after that and became like a mentor and a guide in the program, and started like tutoring other men that were in it and teaching groups, like, you know, like I was a grief group counselor in there. I was also teaching yoga.
Yeah.
And well, my mother passed away 6 months before I got out, and I quickly realized that I had nowhere to go, and I had no real family support. My mother was all I had left.
Yeah.
And so the federal government dropped me in the city of Oklahoma City, in the state of Oklahoma, with pretty much nothing but the shirt on my back. And I knew right off the bat that under most circumstances I should have failed. You know what I mean? I should have succumbed to the destruction, the self-destructive behavior, the gangs, the drugs, self-medicating and all these things, until eventually I would have just ended up back in the system. But with all the tools that I had learned through cognitive thinking, through my spiritual foundation, through journaling and self-reflecting and talking about this abuse, and the more I talked about it, the more it became easier to deal with, I was able to break free from this self-made prison that I had put myself in for so long, that had stuck me in this revolving door, in this recidivism trap, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
And I was able to finally break free. I mean, I got a job working as a dishwasher in a hotel, and worked my way up to becoming a chef. And then, you know, did that for some time, for, you know, a couple of years, until finally working into a major international corporation I work for now, and I make a lot of money. I make a good living. I don't have child support or alimony or anybody depending on me for financial support. So I'm really getting on my feet real fast, and I'm coming this September, it'll be 8 years since the last time I ever used any narcotic.
Congratulations, man. One thing I want to ask you, I touch on mental health a lot, because for me it went hand in hand with my addiction and, you know, self-medicating to deal with, you know, to numb myself. Do you think, like, I know the way I was brought up, like, you don't talk about your feelings, that's weak. And then when I got older and into the system, you know, programs for soft guys, you know, just go upstate. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the way I looked at it when I first got in there. That's the way people, you know, that's the way it is. Do you think, like, coming around and actually talking about it and addressing these issues that you had, you know, do you think that was one of the big things for your success?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, right? And if you follow my channel, you know that I constantly talk about the optics that we all are locked into. We're locked into some kind of optical illusion, one way or the other. Like the optics of everything, how everything appears to us in our sight, the projection. You know, in
streets, things got worse, man. As I was in with, you know, with all the opiates and stuff, you know, that was my thing. And, you know, I would call home, or I would hear that, you know, close friends of mine and, you know, all the way up to family of mine have died because of this. You know what I mean? And, you know, after so many times, reality has to smack you, man. You have to say, hey, I got to straighten up. And then, you know, with a clear head, you start, you know, thinking better. You start changing, and, you know, for me, I got my faith back again, man. And, especially when I was dealing with those losses, you know, and, I brought it out to the street, bro. And that really, it helps me to this day. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you touched on the part about faith, because, for myself, that was something that helped me a lot. So I feel you with that.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you decide, like, did you set anything into play? Because I know, like, myself, like, I lost quite a few friends, you know, through the opiate epidemic. And I realized, like, when I got out the last time I got out, I was homeless. I realized I couldn't go back to the same crowd. You know what I mean? Like, that was one of my big things I realized was, no matter how much I might want to help someone, you know, they're more likely to pull us down than we're going to pull them up, you know?
Absolutely, man.
So, so when you got out and hit the street, I mean, I guess, you know, what did you do to keep yourself busy? I mean, did you get out? Did you have any support when you came home?
Yeah, I had, well, that's a tough one, man. I had some support, man. I had some support. You know, when you're ripping and running out there, bro, I'm sure you know, I burned a lot of bridges, man. And, but, you know, I always had my, you know, solid base of people around me that, they probably doubted me, man. But that itself made me push and strive to do things, man. And, you know, working out was a big thing, man. It got me through in the chain gang, you know what I mean? Especially the second time, because it would help me to vision like little small goals, you know, from here to here, things like that, man. That's how I started taking jobs. That's how I started taking every aspect, man. You know, I'd have a license. I had to take a train. I had a rough start getting out, just like everybody would. But you know, I did have support as far as I would go to church. You know, I didn't make it every Sunday, you know what I mean? But I would still go, and through church, I found some programs. You know, I was in Hollywood when I got out, and, you know, I got into NA, man, and they guided me. You know, I had a sponsor then, and I was working the steps, and, you know, hey, man, with the combination of all that, you know, it helped me, you know. I haven't been to jail. I did a lot of time, man. I got altogether more than 7 years in, but I haven't been to not one night, man, since 2015, man. I've been, you know, I own a house now, man, and I got a CDL. I'm doing real good, man. And if it wasn't for my faith, if it wasn't for the steps, you know, and positive hobbies and stuff, man, I definitely would be back in that, man. Absolutely.
You know, the things you touched on, it's funny, man. Like, a lot of people that I see that have success in recovery, a lot of them have faith, a lot of them work out, and it seems like them two things, you know, really help a lot of people. You know what I mean? I know it definitely helped me myself. And I think, you know, NA is great and all that, but I just think you got to have all the positive support you can get. You know, I know the way I came up, crime was so second nature to me, you know what I mean? I had to put myself around nothing but positive people, you know what I mean, to realize there was another way.
Absolutely. Yeah, you almost get addicted just to the life sometimes. You know, some people say, like, the money, some people say the drugs, but it's just the life in general, man. It's it can be, that itself, man, could be hard, absolutely hard to walk away from or just leave alone, you know what I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, life now compared to when you were ripping and running on the street, I mean, I know, you know, you're working full time, you're a stepfather. Compare life, you know, now to then. I mean, for anyone who's out there still struggling, you know, because you know how it is. It's like a pipe dream to get on the other side of it. I know for me, you know, looking back even 8 years ago, I'm like, man, you know, I'm surprised I'm where I'm at.
Yeah, you're right. It is like a pipe dream, man. It's almost like when you're ripping and running out there, anybody who's watching this, man, if you're going through that, you know, I remember so many times, you know, I remember making deals with the girl I was dating, you know, it's almost like, you know, we would wish and hope to get sober together. But, you know, neither one of us was really going to do that. It was just something to kind of say to each other to make each other feel good at the time. But, you know, from there to now is totally different, man. You know, back then I would be running around town with warrants and, you know, looking behind my back, man. I was in and out of jail, always starting over. And it was just literally a revolving door, man. I had to change my ways. You know, I didn't give a fuck, man. You know, I just would go to jail. There's something wrong with that thinking, man. You know what I mean? You know, and I'm older and older and stuff. And, you know, like I said, man, with the stuff the little formula that I had,
I didn't have anything when I came out, and I had a little efficiency, man, and just little things, man. I went from having a little efficiency, literally the size of a master bedroom. A master bedroom I was renting down there in Hollywood, and that was my whole thing to live in. Riding a bike, I went from riding a bike to the bus to hustling enough money legally to get a little scooter on it, a little engine. And, now I got vehicles, I got a CDL, and I have a house. I look back at that efficiency and just little goals, It came. I didn't get everything in 1 week, but hey, man, look, back when I was struggling, I was cheating people, I was hurting.
Divorce your husband and leave your company husband. He had a good job. He was a good dude. Made probably 110 grand a year. So you leave him to go wait for this freaking convict in prison for 6 years? Are you out of your freaking mind?
That's amazing, man. Yeah, that's amazing, because that don't happen a lot of times. Even if you got a wife, when you go in, when you come out, you don't. So that's not something that normally happens. Now, that's something I wanted to touch on is, you've got out and been able to kind of live your dream through everything. I follow you on YouTube a lot, and I've seen you got to get out and you live northern Michigan, and you get to do everything you wanted to do. So let's touch on that. Did that help keep you motivated to stay out of the lifestyle, or
Well, yeah, man. Naturally, man. That's the thing. You gotta find your outlet. You gotta find things that you enjoy and you love and are passionate about. And not only is that going to consume your time and your thoughts and your energy, but it's also going to keep you grounded, man. I don't want to lose it, man. I lost it for 13 years. I love fishing. I love hunting. I just came in from hunting, right?
Yeah.
I live on a 20-acre ranch or farm on 20 acres. Most of it is wooded in the middle of nowhere in northern Michigan. And, the salmon run just ended, and I caught 55 salmon in 2 weeks in the river. What a rush. You hook into one of those salmon. It's just insane chaos, and I love it, And then, deer hunting every day. I get to see these deer up close. I'm a bow hunter. Yesterday I had 12, 13 deer all around me, surrounded. I was in a ground blind, and, bucks came in. Yeah, there three bucks came in. They were all little ones, but it was cool. One came in like grunting, and just chasing these does around, and it's crazy, I'm in the middle of all this. I'm like, I'm sitting here with this. I'm in their bedroom, bro. And when I'm at my tree stand bow hunting, they're right under me, and I'm watching it, how they interact, how the fawns basically, like a fawn wants nothing more than to make the mother proud. So the fawn is constantly trying to act like the mom. And if the fawn smells something that the mom doesn't smell, because the wind's just a little bit different. Like, my scent trail is over here, but the doe's there and the fawn's here. And the fawn catches the scent trail, she'll freaking look up, she'll stomp, and she might even snort. And now the mother looks at her like a proud mother, like, yeah, what do you got? What do you smell? So it's cool to see that up close, but I'm 10 yards away. I'm really 10 yards away from them. And they're all around me. And seeing how they interact, like the mothers are going in the heat right now, so they're chasing the fawns away. Then they're biting and kicking at the fawns. And the poor little fawns, they're just born in the spring. They don't know why. The mother's been their best friend and love, for the last 8 months, 9 months, and now the mother's being mean. So last week or so, I've had fawns come walking in by themselves, which is really sad because they're little. They only weigh 50, 60 pounds, and they're stupid. They're really stupid. And like the coyotes have been going crazy. I hear coyotes every night barking and yapping. And when they kill one, because there's like 6 of them all going, they go crazy. And they're killing a lot of these fawns right now because the fawns are just dumb. They don't know how to protect themselves. And the coyotes know that, so they target them and they run them down. You can't get away from a coyote. Once the coyote decides he's going to kill you, he's going to kill you, and you can't stop it. It's just they'll run you till you're out of breath, and that's how it works. But anyways, I enjoy being in the environment. That is what grounds me and keeps me motivated to keep going, to work hard. I work very hard on my YouTube channel. I work very hard on my books, marketing. It's always something. And I was just on Vlad TV. Sammy the Bull today.
Congrats on that, man. That's a big thing, man. Being on up there, man. That's a big platform.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, getting on those platforms and stuff like that, it's a matter of constantly marketing myself, connecting with individuals where I have to maybe impress the individuals. Like Ori Spada was a guy who referred me to Vlad, and he's an old gangster from LA, and he went to bat for me and said, you should have this guy Gunner on, man. He's the truth. And they called me right away and said, you want to come on? I said, yeah. And but you always are making contacts and connecting with this person and that person. I've been talking to this producer on Instagram, and he's reading my book, and I have a lot of people always. The thing is, man, my books are a ticking time bomb. So everybody who reads the book has the same reaction. They're blown away. They love it, especially the end of volume 2 where it all comes together. Just like, what the F? So everybody thinks I'm this character. They see my YouTube and they see my social media, and they're like, this dude's a funny dude, man, and he's a character. He's likable. He's camera friendly. He's this, he's that. And I tell him, and I had this producer reach out and he said, man, it's an anomaly that you don't have a movie deal about your life yet. I said, bro,
I'm really surprised, man, because your story, a really amazing story, man, and turning it around like you have, I respect that, because a lot of people, like you said, you hated drugs, and hard drugs, growing up. But a lot of times, myself, I was the same way, but a lot of times we'll end up getting into that somehow. We'll fall into that because we're in that lifestyle so long, and, the pain and everything that comes along with it, So, yeah, I respect what you're doing a lot, man. I really do. If you were to give anybody advice, go ahead.
Well, I was saying, what I told the producer, dude, is everybody thinks my story is this fascinating story, and it's movie worthy or Netflix series and I tell them, I'm like, listen, thank you, I appreciate that, and maybe so, but if you read my books, start to finish, both volumes, you'll forget about me. You'll forget about my story. It won't even matter. The only thing you'll think is, my God, this guy's a world-class best-selling author. These should be movies. People say my books are the next Godfather. If they are, it's a $1 billion franchise I'm talking about. Billions.
Yeah.
If I have the next Godfather.
Trying to run us up on some tax stuff and some extortion stuff. Well, the feds come to the prison I was at and basically were like, listen, it's my job to put people like you in prison for the rest of their life. He said, I'm going to do everything I can do to get you 20 years. He said, you want to be a gangster? You want to do this and do that? Then I'm going to give you a RICO case, and that way you can sit here and play gangster for the rest of your life.
Yeah. When they have them RICO cases, they are not playing. That's why I did a video on that.
And I don't care. Hey, listen, I tell everybody this. When I walked in that room and I saw that it was the FBI, I was terrified. I was 10 months from going home. Been locked up 7.5 years. 10 months from going home. Well, they sent me back to my cell, back to the hole. And it was that weekend, I'll never forget. I sat there and just sat in the middle of my floor, man. I laid out my blanket. I sat in the middle of my floor for the whole weekend. And I thought to myself, is anything that I'm doing make my life any better? Is it making my child's life better? This young kid who has waited for me, drawn pictures. I watched him grow up in pictures and on video and on the phone. And I'm told that I'm going to do the right thing. And I promised these people that this is what I'm doing. But the whole time, behind the scenes, I'm still doing this, doing that, which is a straight addict mentality,
Yeah. Yeah. We always try to escape the system,
I'm guessing eyes and stuff during lockup, correct?
Yeah. My last bid, man. I did 18 months, and I was losing a lot of my sight at that point, and it was tricky, man.
And what facilities were you at? And what'd you go in for?
Okay, I had messed up burglary charge that I had caught on some BS, but anyways, I went through the county jail and all that. It was like 4 months in county jail fighting my case. I ended up pleading out to where I went to prison, but I also got like a prison rehab program towards the end of my bid.
Okay, got a little program thing. So I'm guessing it was all based or around drugs, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I was an addict, man, growing up my whole life. Like, I overdosed at 4 years old because my mom was an addict and had drugs.
4?
Yeah, a bottle of Ativan when I was 4.
So how did that cause you to overdose? Would you accidentally grab something or
like,
what?
I remember my mom had me on the counter, bro, and like she was giving my grandma some, like, and then she poured some in her hand, and they were eating them, and I just grabbed the bottle and turned it up. You know, like I was like 3 or 4. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So what was your drug of choice out there? Dope, I'm guessing? You said you overdosed?
Oxycontin,